Back to basketball. Naismith. Anybody in here not know the name Naismith? He's the man that invented the game. Now let's talk about the bad shape he was in. He's a professor at Springfield College. And the president says to him, we don't have a problem with the kids during the spring and early in the year, he said, because they behave, because they go outside to get a lot of activity. But in the winter, they are just raising hell on campus. Find something for them to do that keeps them occupied and keeps them worn out with physical activity. So Naismith's job is to do that. So he comes up with this idea. And he says to the janitor, he said, let me tell you something, I've got this game, classes are going to start in the fall, in the winter semester here. He said, I want you to build me 2 boxes. And he said, about this size, and when the classes start, bring them upstairs. So here come the class. Got 18 people in the class. Naismith says to the janitor, where are the boxes? The guys, I forgot to build the boxes. Oh, Christ. He said, what do you got downstairs we can use? And the guy says, I got some peach baskets. So he brings up the 2 peach baskets. And Naismith says, hang them up. And the first gymnasium, to be honest with you, is about 2/3 the size of this, about from here down to the end. And that's about the size of that first gym. So he says, and there's a track above it. So he says to the janitor, put the baskets up. And the guy says, where do I put them? Hang it on that nail over there. Now, let me ask this lady in the pink. How high is a basket off the ground in basketball? LeBron James, when he dunks every night, how high is that basket? Do you have any idea? 10 feet. Great. You cheated, though. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. You asked that lady. Okay. That's okay. We all have a tendency to go that way every once in a while. All right. So, now do you know why it's 10 feet? Do you think Naismith was sitting there saying, now, LeBron James in 2009, you know why it's 10 feet, ma'am? That's where the nail was, 10 feet. There was no, it was 10 feet. So the guy said, what do I do with the other basket? And they said, you idiot. He says, you go ahead and put it over there and about the same place. So that's why the basket is 10 feet tall, all right? So now you got these kids. How many people play in a basketball game on each side, young lady? Huh? 5, tremendous. How many played in the first game? You weren't listening. How many kids were in the class? How many played on each side? 9, exactly. Okay, hey, over here. Now, here's the problem. Naismith never thought through. Okay, we got to think out of the box. Now, he tells them, basically, here are these little rules that he has. You're going to try and put this ball in the basket. And a guy shoots and makes one. All right? Actually, it was a throw. You didn't have a shot in those days. The rules talked about a throw. That's why it's a free throw, not a free shot. But I won't get that far down the line. Makes it. Now, here's where we Polish people come to the front in basketball. There's not a lot of us that did a lot, okay, but here's where we came. Here's what happens. The ball goes in the basket. How high up is the basket? And what's a peach basket have at the bottom of it? Yeah, so the ball doesn't come out, okay? They got a problem. Hey, well, what do we do? Go get a ladder, get the ball out, okay? They get the ladder. You know, for 2 years, basketball was played with a ladder beside the baskets, okay? People go, and they made metal baskets, you know, because the peach baskets were breaking. Finally, a guy by the name of Polbazowski one day said, you know what, if we take the bottom out of the basket, we won't need the ladders. Thinking out of the box, okay? We got to think out of the box. Now, so we wouldn't even have a game. We'd have a great ladder business, but we wouldn't have a damn game of basketball if somebody wasn't thinking. So that's what we have to do now in America. We have to think out of the box. We got to stop being Republicans and Democrats. We got to be people that are willing to think out of the box, pull together, get on each other's back, and take this thing through. And I think that we will eventually do that just as Washington did. Hopefully we won't burn all the boats behind us, but whatever it takes, we have to think out of the box. And I'll give you some other examples of things that guys thinking out of the box. My first national championship was 1975. And I worked with the great Kurt Gowdy then, and it turned out to be a game I'll never forget because it was John Wooden's last game as a coach, and he won a national championship. The very next year, my buddy Bob Knight takes Indiana to an undefeated season, and he's going to play in the national championship game, Michigan against Indiana. They had played twice before that season. Indiana obviously winning both games. First time in the history of the NCAA tournament that 2 teams from the same conference, the Great Big Ten, played for the national championship. I am in Philadelphia, and on one side of me is the incredible Kurt Gowdy, a legendary broadcaster. On the other side of me is Dick Enberg, who became the incredible broadcaster. But in the middle is Billy Pachkowski from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I am in the middle. The teams are shooting around, the horn sounds, the players go to the respective benches, and all of a sudden, The manager from Indiana comes over and says, Mr. Packer, Mr. Packer. Nobody ever called me that before. And I said, what do you want? He said, Coach Knight needs to talk to you right away. Well, of course. Hell, I've been to national championships. This is Bobby's first. He's a little nervous. So I walk across that court in Philadelphia. You know, how big a shot am I? There's Gotti on the left, and there's Enberg on the I'm in the middle. Now Knight needs to get last-minute instructions for me. I go through there, Quinn Buckner, get out of the way, you know. Bobby Wilkinson, get out of the way. May, out of the way. And there's Knight. He's got that plaid sport coat on, and he's down on one knee, and he looks up to me, and he says, hey, Packer, where the hell's the ACC today? Now that's when you got to think out of the box. That's when you got to think out of the box, okay? Tom Butters, that name will mean nothing to you. But when you start writing the history of the game, who would we say right now is probably the dominant or the predominant coach in American basketball? What would we say? We want to argue about Mike Krzyzewski being the guy. I mean, somebody might want to argue about that a little bit. But 3 national championships. He's going to win 1,000 games in his career. Olympic gold medal coach. I mean, incredibly respected. Mike Krzyzewski is a big name in basketball. You know who's a bigger name? Tom Butters. Does anybody in this room know who Tom Butters is? I didn't think so. Well, no, you can't say. You're a Dookie, all right? Yes, sir. Oh, no, another ringer. There's a ringer. We got 2 ringers in here. Tom Butters was the athletic director at Duke University, all right? Now, in Mike Krzyzewski's 3rd year, this guy Valvano is going up like this at NC State. This guy, Krzyzewski, is going down like this, down to the point in the first round of the ACC tournament. They play against Virginia and a guy named Ralph Sampson, and they lose by 37 points. The Duke alumni, led by this guy right here, okay, demanded the ouster of Mike Krzyzewski, okay? How stupid could you be to play Ralph Sampson, a 7'3" guy, the National Player of the Year, lose by 37, and not 1 minute in the game do you play zone? He has got to go. Tom Butters said, he's my coach, stick with him, and before this thing is over, you'll rue the day that you ever thought we should get rid of Mike Krzyzewski. Here we are in 2009. He's the greatest coach in college basketball presently. Out-of-the-box thinking by people. I think of my first game as a broadcaster. Here's how I got there. You talk about out-of-the-box. I'd never been on a TV show in my life. I'm selling radio advertising time. A friend of mine by the name of Marvin Skeeter Francis was in the ACC office at the time. He calls me up about 2:30 one day. Billy, how would you like to go see NC State play Maryland tonight? Wow, that's a big game. Nobody ever invited me to a game from the time I'd been out of college. Skeeter's cheap. The ACC's cheap. So I knew I'd have to probably drive over and drive him over and buy him dinner, but, you know, what the hell, I'm going to see the game. So I pick him up in Greensboro. We get over to Raleigh, and he said, Billy, you ever see the inside of a TV truck? I said, no, Skeeter, I never have. Come on with me. Boy, isn't Skeeter being nice to me? I get inside the TV truck, and there's a man in there by the name of Castleman B. Chesley. He was the guy Castleman D. Chesley, he's the guy that started syndicated college sports on television. And he spoke out of his chest because he had an operation on his throat. And all of a sudden, I hear this voice coming out of the guy's shirt. Is this the guy, Skeeter? Skeeter told me, he's the guy. I got him. And I don't know who they're talking about. We get outside the truck, and Skeeter says, now, Billy, let me tell you something. He said, now, I know you're the only guy who got the nerve to try this. I was supposed to get a replacement announcer tonight. I forgot about it till this afternoon. You got to go on TV for me. I said, Skeeter, I said, where do you go? He said, go upstairs. He said, do the best you can. Well, I run to the telephone. I call my wife. I say, hey, Bob, you're not going to believe this. Goofy Skeeter has me announcing the game. Get the kids around the TV. She said, Billy, were you crazy? I said, no, I'm going to try it. What the heck? So I go up there, and I don't want to seem crude here, but there are all these wires. I am the least. I don't own a cell phone. I don't have a car phone. I don't know what email is. I don't have, to this day. Okay, so you can imagine what I was like in those days. Here's all this stuff there. And the other announcer guys there. And it reminded me of the 7th grade, Nitchman Junior High School in Bethlehem, PA. You go out for football for the first time, and you can't wait if you can make the team. Everybody, all the guys can relate to this, and maybe some of the moms too. And if you make the team, you get a uniform. And it's in your pants. Everything, you know, your helmet stuffed in the pants, your hip pads, your shoulder pads, all in the pants.